And the next section is trees as the origin of mankind. The origin of mankind from plants seems to be a myth of ancient Aryan origin, and Hesiod, when treating of the ages of the world, speaks of 5 succeeding races of mankind, and he tells that the third, or brazen race of men, were formed by Zeus out of ash trees. This race, he says, delighted in war, although they ate no corn, yet they had prodigious strength. While all things they used were composed of brass, for black iron was not yet. Their end was their slaughter by each other, and leaving no fame behind them, they went down to the mouldy house of cold AIDS. AIDS. I'm not sure how to say that word. Virgil, speaking of King Evander, the founder of the Roman glory, causes him to say, "These groves the native fauns and nymphs possessed, and a race of men sprung from the trunks of trees and stubborn oak, who had neither laws nor refinement, knew neither to yoke the steer, nor to gather the wealth, nor to use their acquisitions with moderation. But the branches and hunting, a rough source of sustenance, supplied them with food." In Italy, it is said that a man comes from seppo, i.e. trunk, stump, etc., or from stipedi, a stem. In the Phrygian cosmogony, according to Pausanias, an almond tree was considered as the father of all things, probably from its lilac blossoms appearing before the leaves, and thus being the earliest heralds of the spring. Almost all the Semitic and Aryan races inherit the tradition of mankind having originated from a tree, and Schobel, conjecturing the probable origin of this belief, wrote in Le Mythe de la Femme et du Serpent that in the tree man saw such a resemblance to himself that he thought he had come from the earth like and under the form of a tree. The prophet Isaiah allegorically depicted human beings as trees when he wrote that out of the stem of Jesse should come forth a rod, and from its roots a branch. And this gave rise to an artistic myth which depicted the Virgin Mary coming out from the waist of a tree which was planted in the navel of the personage who was the founder of the family. And sometimes she is compared to a flowering stem from paradise. Many of the ancient races conceived the clouds as being parts of a mighty universal tree, and as from clouds descended the rain, the ambrosia, or the life-giving fluid, vegetation became looked upon as symbolical of life and generation. Thus man, in course of time, connected his origin with these cloud trees, which became materialized into actual trees. Scandinavian mythology tells how the dwarfs fashioned 2 figures out of trees. These figures were found by Odin and his brothers, who endowed them with life and understanding. They named them Askir and Embla, and they were the first human beings. I'll show you the words for that. Among the Scandinavian races, the goddess Holda, who combined the form of a lovely woman with the trunk of a tree, was believed to have been the creator of mankind. And legend of Hesi describes her as being a beautiful woman in front, while behind she resembles a hollow tree. The oak and the ash have both been looked upon as progenitors of mankind. The Greeks had a tradition that a mighty cosmogonic or cloud ash produced the first race of men through the Malayi or nymphs of the ash, who were regarded as cloud goddesses. They also looked upon the oak as having produced the first men, and oak trees were called the first mothers. The Romans also shared this belief, and Juvenal, in his 6th satire, speaks of mankind as born of the opening oak, which, mother-like, fed man with her own acorns, while Ovid says that man's first food was acorns dropping from the tree of Jove. Even yet, in some parts of Germany, the belief is current, especially among children, that babies are brought by the doctor from out some ancient hollow tree or stump. The genealogical tree is said to commemorate the descent of man from the trunk of a tree, and Dante imagined the human family under the form of this tree. The Persian or Iranian tradition of the creation of man is that originally the first human pair grew up as a double tree with the fingers of each folded over the ears of the other. When this tradition had attained maturity, it was separated into two by the decree of Ormuzd, who endowed each half with a separate existence and a human soul as a man and a woman with the gift of knowledge. Some Indian tribes believe that men originated from trees. Thus, M. Rousselet, speaking of the cassia tree, known in India under the name of Moa, as supplying all the native wants, says, "We are therefore not surprised to learn that in the Windhas and Aravallis, the inhabitants look upon it as equal to the divinity. It is from it that the Gauns, Bills, Mehers, and Maneo derive their existence." Regarding this ancient belief in the human race having been originally descended from trees, there is a tale found throughout Asia of 4 travelers who spent a night in a forest and agreed that one of them should keep watch by turns while the others slept. The first one who kept watch was a carpenter, and to while away the time, he carved out the shape of a beautiful woman from the trunk of a tree lying near at hand. When the second, a tailor, saw the figure, he clothed it. The third, when his turn came, became a jeweler, decked out the image with jewels. The fourth was a holy man, and he was so impressed by the sight of the lovely image that he invoked all his magic powers and endowed the image with life. When the rest awoke, each claimed the lovely being as his wife, because they had all had a hand in shaping her. The dispute waxed furious, and the authorities of the neighboring village were appealed to solve the problem as to which of the 4 the hand of the disputed bride should belong. This they were unable to do, and finally the case was submitted to a higher court. The whole court went out to the cemetery, where prayers were offered for a decision from on high. During this time, the woman was leaning against a tree when suddenly it opened, and the woman entering it was seen no more. As she vanished, a voice from the heavens was heard saying, "To its original shall every created thing return." A central Indian race called the Khattis believe that they originated in the following manner. At the time when the 5 sons of Pandu, the heroes of whom the Mahabharata has sung the exploits, were reduced to being simply guardians of their cattle, Karna, their illegitimate brother, thought he would deprive them of this last resource. Recognizing that he would be unable to employ the warriors, that is, the nobles, in such a dishonorable enterprise, Karna struck the earth with his wand. The wand opened immediately, and from it came a man called Kat, a word meaning engendered from wood. Karna employed him in the theft of the cattle, by guaranteeing in the name of the gods that a similar action would never be considered as a crime, either in him or in any of his descendants. On account of this accommodating tradition, the Khattis always bless the memory of Karna. The Kabyles of North Africa believe that the men who lead the tribes are formed from the ash tree. Mayer tells us that the Aborigines of Encounter Bay in Australia say that the first man was formed from the gum of a wattle tree. He then entered into a young woman and was properly born. This belief is also found widespread in America, where trees were worshipped as the emblem of life. A myth of the Yurucases of Bolivia relates that when all mankind had been destroyed by fire, the god Tiri opened a tree and from it drew forth all the various tribes. When a sufficient number had come forth, he closed up the tree. But these people were weak and ignorant, so a virgin prayed to Ula, who was the most beautiful tree of the forest, or rather, the tree contained Ula. who came forth and embraced the Virgin, and from their union the culture hero sprang who taught the people the arts of life. The Quiches of Central America had certain divine beings whom they called givers of life. These first made men from clay, who, however, were weak and watery, and they were destroyed by water. They next made men from wood and women from the pith of trees. These peopled the earth with wooden mannequins, but this race, being still considered unsatisfactory, was destroyed. Some other experimental races were made, until finally men were formed from white and yellow maize, and these were the progenitors of the present races of mankind. In the legends of the Peccary Caribs of the Antilles in the West Indies, the mythical twin heroes Carrie and Came brought the original animals from the hollow trunk of a tree. A North American legend or epic tells the adventures of a mythical being called Kulaskap or Glooskap, who on one occasion took his bow and arrows and shot at an ash tree. From the hole made by the arrowmen came forth the first of the human race. Among the South American tribes of Guyana, among the South American tribes of Guyana, a great creator is acknowledged. They say that all created things came from a branch of a silk cotton tree, which had been cut down by the creator, but that the white man had sprung from the chips of a particularly useless tree. Another belief was that all plants grew from one tree, in the center of which was a huge pool of water inhabited by fish. A reminiscence of the deluge is that a monkey let loose this water, which thus drowned the world. The classical myth of Deucalion and Pyrrha, who repeopled the earth by throwing stones behind them, finds its counterpart among the Tamanka tribes of the Orinoco, who say that the only survivors of the deluge, a man and a woman, repopulated the world by throwing the stones of the Ida Palm, Mauritia, over their heads, which at once became human beings.